OpenDAO's objective is to connect real world assets to DeFi. Now, what that means at a very practical level is we will be able to take real world assets such as property, stocks, commodities, etc., and we'll be able to tokenize them. And then the idea is to use these tokenized assets as collateral and mint a stable coin, which is USDO in our case, which can then be used in the real world. Now, in order for us to do that, now the technology side of it is actually quite straightforward. We have already done the tokenization side of things. We already have a USDO minter. We are starting with on-chain assets first, and then as we achieve distribution, we will do real estate, and then we'll do stocks, etc. Stocks and then real estate. Now the real question is, when we mint this USDO, who's going to accept it? So the answer to that is, for example, if you have a property, if somebody has a property and they tokenize it and then they use that to mint USDO, what are they going to do with that USDO in the real world? Who's going to accept it? So the answer to that is, first we need to establish parity with existing stables such as USDT and USDC, 1:1, and very high liquidity. So if you can go from USDO to these other existing stables on demand, and there's enough liquidity and parity for that, then that solves most of the problems, because USDT and USDC already have fiat off ramps. So you can go to any OTCs or any exchange and convert that back to real world dollars. So as long as we can go from USDO to USDT, USDC, that's good enough. Now, in order for that to happen, we need to, we have several tools already. We have, firstly, USDO should always have a proper peg, for which we have the liquidations module, and then we also have adjustments of interest rates, which keep the peg where we want. But even if we have the peg, that doesn't mean that people are going to mint USDO. And if we don't have enough on-chain demand for USDO, then the reality is this liquidity is not going to establish itself. So first, what we need to do is we need to create demand for USDO. And demand, the reality is even just demand for on-chain stuff is enough. So we need USDO to be accepted in DeFi applications, which people want to use. So what are the key things which people want to do on DeFi? And the reality is, it's mostly speculation. So the key building blocks of DeFi really are swaps, synthetics like trading platforms, borrowing, lending, and ICOs, IDOs. So obviously we are not going to do the swaps things, but we do have plans to fork synthetics, and we already have a compound style borrowing lending platform, and we are also going to do a launchpad for projects which we are going to fund, which are synergetic with our mission of connecting real world assets to DeFi. So we already have a compound style minter on BSC. We have a long short trading platform coming up, which will allow you to use USDO and short other assets, or other assets, people who have other assets to go long on them. We are also going to implement on Matic, and eventually we'll also bring things on ETH. So we are going to focus on building use cases for USDO. These three things primarily: borrowing, lending, synthetics, and ICO, IDO, which will drive demand for USDO. And once you have enough demand for USDO, that will automatically result in good liquidity against USDC, USDT, because if there is demand, then the liquidity will follow. Obviously, we'll incentivize this as well. Once you have demand for USDO, there is enough USDO floating in there, the liquidity and parity is established, then at that point, that pretty much is the end game. And we will be able to then start putting in real world assets as collateral. I have not discussed the liquidations procedures here because that's a completely different aspect of it, but this will take care of the most important pieces, which is create demand for USDO, which in turn will drive liquidity and parity against existing staples. As long as we are able to do that, the project will be fine. And we believe that we are on track for deploying products which will be based on USDO, which will be interesting to people, and that will drive the demand for USDO. Thanks.